After many years of unfilled promises, now is the time to enact a meaningful middle-class tax cut.
It was the headline from last week's State of the State address, and an awfully familiar one to Republicans. After all, they've been calling for an income tax cut for many months now. I'm Eric Lanskruner, and welcome back to Power and Politics. The governor's call to cut the income tax rate was welcome news, not only to residents, but to the state GOP as well it should be. Republican leaders first started calling for this almost a year ago. Here was reaction from the chamber from both parties after the governor's speech.
I think it's great. I wish we had the conversation last year, but I'm grateful that he's now embracing that policy.
I think our members are on board for tax cuts with the governor. We'll have to figure out what they are.
Of course, now it is up to the General Assembly to haggle and wrangle over what relief should look like here. State Representative Holly Cheeseman, Ranking Member, Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, joining us right now. Thank you so much, first of all, for being here today.
My pleasure, Eric. It's always nice to talk about tax cuts, and particularly when the governor and the other party seem to agree with our initial stance.
Listen, what was your reaction when you first got wind that the governor was going to pitch something that your party had been calling for almost a year?
Well, I think we're sort of used to this by now. I mean, we were the ones that first proposed that gas tax holiday back when gasoline prices were going through the roof. As you mentioned, we've been proposing a real income tax cut in last year's budget. Unfortunately, it wasn't adopted. So better late than never. I mean, welcome to our party, Governor.
Why do you think he came around when he did, especially since in the run-up to the election, there was, as you know, a lot of talk about, keeping the state's coffers as full as possible to weather a recession?
I think he's realized that because of that bipartisan budget that we put forward in 2017, which, as I keep reminding people, only happened because Republicans had a seat at the table. The state has some very good fiscal guardrails in place. We have an overflowing rainy day fund. We've paid down billions in pension debt, which not only frees up money in the budget for a tax cut, but also ensures we do have that rainy day fund should stormy times come. And we're past the election now. And I think, I can't speak for the governor, but I believe he is looking at his long-term legacy. And one, he wants to give some immediate relief to families. And we've seen the toll inflation has taken. We've seen, our tax receipts have gone up. Our sales tax has gone through the roof. Much of that is driven by inflation, both in the general fund and the special transportation fund. So if families are suffering and we have at our disposal the revenue to help them get through these hard times, why not? We shouldn't be taking more of their money than we need to run the state.
The devil, as you know, is always in the details. And right now, there are few details. Nobody wants one-time tax cuts. People want something that's more permanent. Is that possible given the current economic climate?
Well, I think it is. I mean, if the proposal that Republicans put forward would be to get rid of that 5% tax bracket. And that would help millions of American families, giving them relief of up to, I believe it was $700 to $800 a year per family, and at a cost of $386 million per year. I agree with you. We don't want to go back to the bad old days when, we promised, you're going to get a $500 property tax credit, and that went away. Or, we're going to give our municipalities this amount, and, the bad times have come, and now we can't do it. But with the pay down in the pension debt, if we do have an extra $400 million out there, that's money, again, we could return to the taxpayers. And let's look at the special transportation fund as well. The governor is still saying we need that highway use tax. Well, we have over $260 million surplus. I can see a surplus in the general fund budget, but a surplus in the special transportation fund. I mean, basically, the surplus is for unexpected expenses. What do we think? Meteors are going to hit all our Connecticut bridges and we're going to have to rebuild them with that special fund. So I would say while we're on the the subject of tax cuts, get rid of that highway use tax, which is just going to be passed on to the residents. And maybe we look at cutting the gas tax as well on a more permanent basis, all of which would help our residents.
When it comes to that income tax rate cut here, though, what household income level do you expect to benefit most from this, and where do you expect the cutoff to be? And is that going to be really a point of contention between your party and the Democratic Party?
Well, again, I believe the governor said, $150,000 to $200,000 household. Our proposal was for $175,000, so I think we're certainly looking at a sweet spot. And another issue I would love to look at is going forward indexing our tax brackets and deductions to inflation. That hasn't been done since the income tax was put into place. Again, inflation drives wages up. It may put you in a new tax bracket. So I think that would be a big help to our residents going forward. And that is at a much smaller cost.
How have preliminary conversations gone? Because as you know, Democratic leadership has said we have to look at this. We have to look at how we want to implement this. Have there been preliminary conversations?
Well, I can't speak for leadership. I know in, discussions, informal discussions I've had with the administration, there is an appetite to do tax cutting, particularly to benefit our middle class families who have seen such a toll taken on their pocketbooks. Let's face it, the governor will come in on February 8th. He will present his budget ideas, and then the legislature has, another 3-4 months to come up with theirs. And, finance, revenue, and bonding and appropriations have the latest deadline. We need to look at what those income tax returns look like in April. And it's backroom haggling and all sorts of, things that happen. But starting as it seems that we're on the same page, I think that's a good sign for the residents of Connecticut going forward.
State Representative Cheeseman, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.